welcome back. I'm Sandhya, your botany lecturer. In the last videos, we have studied about the formation of the male gamete and the female gamete. That is formation of the pollen grain and the structure of it, and the formation of the female gametophyte embryo sac. Inside that, when the female gamete egg cell is present. So that we have studied. Now what we have to now in sexual reproduction, what is important? The transfer of the pollen grains must take place, such that the fertilization takes place. Fertilization, fusion of male and female gametes. So the fusion, the transfer is important. So the transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma is called pollination, which is very important. Vital step to carry out all the ecological functions for the balance, for the equilibrium in the ecosystem is also this pollination is very important for a healthy ecosystem. So pollination, transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma is called as pollination. This pollination can be direct or indirect, or you can say kinds of pollination. Now coming to types of pollination, let us study now. So what are the kinds of pollination? Two types are there. There are two types: autogamy and allogamy, or you can say direct and indirect also. So if the transfer of pollen grains takes place from the anther to the stigma of the same flower, if it takes place inside the same flower, it is called as autogamy, or you can say self-pollination, or selfing also you can say. If the transfer of pollen grains are taking place from anther to the stigma of another flower of the same plant, or stigma of the another flower of the another plant, it can be, means here from anther to stigma, this is same flower. Here anther to stigma of another flower of same plant, or anther to stigma another flower of another plant. Okay, it is also called as allogamy, or it is also called as cross pollination. It is also called as cross pollination. This is autogamy. This is allogamy. Okay. So diagram wise, if you take diagram wise, this is the plant, isn't it? So here the flower is there, here the pollen grains. This is the flower. Okay. So if the transfer of pollen grains are taking place from the anther to the stigma of the same flower, this is allogamy. Suppose if the transfer of pollen grains are taking place from anther to the stigma of the another flower, sorry, this is not allogamy, this is autogamy. Transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of the same flower is autogamy. Careful, autogamy. If the transfer of pollen grains are taking place from one flower to another flower of the same plant, is allogamy. It is allogamy or cross pollination. Allogamy or cross pollination, or it is also called as, a specific name is there, it is called as nitinogamy. Here these are genetically same. Both this one are genetically similar. Both Autogamy and allogamy, deuterogamy are genetically similar because they belong to the same flower. So deuterogamy. So in another pollination, what happens? This is the flower. Okay. So if the pollen grains of one flower are falling on the stigma of the another flower of another plant. This is plant 1, this is plant 2, isn't it? So if the pollen grains are falling on the stigma of the another flower, such type of thing is also called as allogamy. Allogamy, allogamy or cross pollination, and a specific name is given to this. This is called as xenogamy. And this type of cross pollination is going to show variations. They are genetically different. We are going to get a different variety because a different plant, because the pollen grains of one plant are falling on the stigma of another plant. So they are genetically different. Variations are going to occur here. Variations occur because there is genetic variability. Because, wait a minute, genetic variability is there. That's why variations are going to occur. This is xenogamy. This is about the kinds of pollination now. Moving on to agents of pollination. Agents of pollination. Agents of pollination. Here abiotic agents are there, such as wind and water. These are abiotic agents. Biotic agents are animals. Okay. So if it takes place by wind, okay, it is called as anemophily. If it takes place by water, such type of pollination is called as hydrophily. Okay, so here as these are abiotic agents. These both are abiotic agents. As here wind is involved, no? Here if you take for example anemophily, here wind is the agent. Here wind is involved, so enormous number of pollen grains are produced, and the ovule is only single. The female gamete is only single, but enormous number of pollen grains are produced to compensate the loss. Loss of pollen grains. That's why more number of pollen grains are produced. And here the pollen grains are very light. The pollen grains are light and they are non-sticky. The pollen grains are light and non-sticky. What are pollen grains? The pollen grains. And if you take the example of stigma, the stigma is also light. It is large. It is large, often feathery, such that it takes up the pollen grains which are coming by wind. So feathery stigma, large feathery stigma. Feathery stigma such that it can trap the airborne pollen grains. And here the ovule is single ovule is produced. Single ovule is produced. Very good example for anemophilous pollinating plants are grasses. Okay, grasses are the plants where the anemophilous pollination takes place. This is about the anemophilous pollination. Moving on to the hydrophily. When a pollination takes place by water, it is called as hydrophily. See, different types of hydrophytes are there. Free floating hydrophytes, submerged hydrophytes, submerged rooted hydrophytes, like that. So here this hydrophily is divided into it is divided into two types again. It is epihydrophily and hypohydrophily. Okay, it doesn't mean that all hydrophytes are going to undergo this the hydrophily. Some majority of them are going to get pollinated by insects, but some plants are there like Vallisneria, Hydrilla, Zoostera. They are going to undergo the pollination by hydrophily. So epihydrophily occurs in Vallisneria. It is a rooted hydrophyte, isn't it? It is rooted here. Then here it is having a long stalked female flower, isn't it? And that long stalked female flower is going to come up on the water surface. Then here the pollen grains will be released and they will be coming up onto the surface, and they're going to pollinate the female flower like this. So epihydrophily, the pollination takes place on the water surface. Then hypohydrophily takes place in Zoostera. It is a marine species. In marine water, this plant is going to grow, and it is going to here in this the pollination is going to take place inside the water. The pollination is going to take place inside the water, hence it is called as hypohydrophily. Then here the flowers will be totally submerged. Okay, here the flowers are submerged. Vallisneria is a rooted hydrophyte, but it is going to come up. The flower is going to come up. Here the Zoostera is a submerged one. Hence the flowers are submerged. The pollen grains are also released inside the water, and then the pollen grains are long and ribbon-like. They are long and ribbon-like. Ribbon-like pollen grains are present in Zoostera. Hence the pollination occurs inside the water. Such type of pollination is called as hypohydrophily. This is about the abiotic agents. Moving on to the biotic agents. Biotic agents means living organisms. Living organisms means animals, mainly animals. So if the pollination is taking place by animals, it is called as by animals. Such type of pollination is called as zoophily. This is biotic agent. It is having life. Biotic agent. Zoophily is of many types. They can be insects, they can be squirrels, they can be mammals, they can be snakes, they can be reptiles, they can be birds. So many. So these are of different types. So what are those different types? Let us learn. Few of them we are going to learn now. Okay. Entomophily. Entomophily, when the pollination takes place by insects, it is called as entomophily. Then ornithophily. Insects means honeybees, beetles, flies, butterflies, many etc. Many other examples. Ornithophily means when it is taking place by birds. Mainly, many birds are there actually. We can take the example of hummingbird. Many birds are there, but we can take the example of hummingbird. So when the pollination is taking place by birds, it is called as ornithophily. Then if it is taking place by bats, it is called as chiropterophily. Chiropterophily. When the pollination is taking place by bats. When it is taking place by snails and slugs, it is called as malacophily. By snails and slugs. When it is taking place by ants, it is called as myrmecophily. By ants. Here, simple. It is very simple to remember. Phily means pollination. Entomo means related to insects. Ornitho related to birds. Phily means pollination. Chiroptero related to bats. Myrmeco related to ants. So phily means pollination. When the pollination is taking place by ants, myrmecophily. If suppose branch or study is there, myrmecology. Suppose the study of snails is called as malacology. The study of insects is called as, instead of phily, logy will come. Logy means study. So entomology. So if you study of birds is called as ornithology. Instead of phily, logy will come. Ornithology, like that. Then if the pollination takes place by squirrels, it is called as therophily. If it is taking place by squirrels, it is called as therophily. If it is taking place by reptiles or snakes, it is called as ophiophily. If it is taking place by reptiles or snakes, reptiles or snakes, reptiles is called as ophiophily. So these are the few examples. Many are there, but here these are the few examples. Then let us study about the importance or some characteristic features of this better zoophily plants like that. Okay. So as the pollination is going to take place by the insects, by the plants, by the animals, by the insects, birds, reptiles like that, these plants will be attracting those animals. So in what way they are attracting? By bearing beautiful flowers, colorful flowers. They are producing the nectar flowers, which will be serving as a food for some animals, like for insects, for butterflies, or sometimes the fragrance, the nectar, the color of the flowers. So by this characteristic feature of the plants are going to attract the animals and matter. So these plants are going to give rewards to the animals. So the color, the fragrance, odor, all these are going to attract the animals. They are nothing but they are going to provide rewards to the animals and matter. The nectar and pollen grains are the usual floral rewards. The nectar and majorly the animals are going to come near the plants because of this. For this nectar and pollen grains. For nectar and pollen grains, they are going to come near the plants. So when they come near, these particular pollen grains are going to get attached to the body of these animals, and they go to another plant. So that is how the pollination is going to occur. So these are the floral rewards. Floral rewards to the animals. Mainly the nectar and the pollen grains are the floral rewards to the animals. For harvesting these rewards from the flower, the animal visitors come in contact with the anthers and stigma, and that's how the body of the animal gets a coating of the pollen grains, and which are generally sticky in animal pollinated flowers. When the animal carrying pollen grain on its body comes in contact with the stigma of another flower, it brings about the pollination. That is there. This is about the floral rewards. Then two examples are there about the floral rewards and about the symbiotic association. The inflorescence of Amorphopalus. The inflorescence of Amorphopalus is a site for laying eggs of some insects. Is a site for laying eggs and mother. So there is a symbiotic association. Okay, so some species are going to lay eggs. Some species are going to lay eggs in the inflorescence of Amorphopalus. So symbiotic pollination, and also inside the locule of the ovary of yucca plant, of flower of yucca plant, a moth is going to lay the eggs and matter. So the name of the moth is Tejecticula yuccacella. Tejecticula yuccacella is a moth which is going to lay egg in the locule of the ovary. So what happens? This yucca plant is going to get pollinated. Then how the moth is getting benefited? The moth is going to complete its life cycle and matter. In the ovary, it is going to get lay the eggs, and the larva is going to come out after the seeds are formed and matter. So in this way, the life cycle of both the plant and the moth is getting completed. They are living in symbiotic association. So symbiotic pollination also we can say. Okay, the life cycles of both the species is getting completed. Here the pollination is taking place. Here from eggs they're developing into larva and coming out when the seed starts developing. This is about the symbiotic association. Then not only these are getting mutual help. Some animals are there which are going to just take the pollen grains and do nothing anamata. They'll not help the plants at all, but they just take the nectar and the pollen grains. Such type of animals are called as nectar robbers or pollen robbers. Nectar robbers or pollen robbers. Nectar robbers or pollen robbers, where they are not helpful to plants, but they just take the pollen grains and nectar. Many insects may consume the pollen or the nectar without bringing about pollination. Such floral visitors are referred as pollen or nectar robbers. So some species are there also. And then this is about the pollination. This is about the pollination. So if you see the self-pollination, there will be in the offsprings, in the progeny, there will be no variations. They are genetically similar. And if you take for example the Nyctinogamy offsprings also, progeny also, daughter plants of Nyctinogamous pollination also, they are genetically similar. Maybe of the different flower, but they belong to the same plant kada, so they are genetically similar. But only the xenogamy pollination, they are going to show some variations, and some variations will be there, and some genetically they are going to be different. So if continuously the self-pollination occurs, there will be some inbreeding depression is going to occur. So the nature only has provided these plants. To get pollinated by cross pollination only. Okay, such type of devices is called as outbreeding devices. Outbreeding devices are those techniques or strategies where the plants avoid self pollination and promote the cross pollination. So what are those devices and what are those techniques which the nature has given to the plants? Let us going to learn now. Then one more thing I am going to discuss, the self-pollination. The self-pollination is going to be common, very common, and it is must in clistogamous flowers. Clistogamous flowers are those flowers which do not open at all. These are the flowers which do not open at all. They are the closed flowers. So in clistogamous flowers, the self-pollination only takes place. The autogamy only takes place. In chasmogamous flowers are majority of the flowers are chasmogamous. They are open. So in this case, both self-pollination and cross-pollination is possible. So in the case of chasmogamous flowers, both self-pollination and cross-pollination is going to take place. But in clistogamous flowers, there is assured seed set even in the absence of pollinators. In clistogamous flowers, there is assured, definitely there is going to be a seed set even in the absence of pollinators. But here self-pollination takes place. In chasmogamous flowers, the flowers are open. So here majorly the cross-pollination is going to occur. So when this cross-pollination only, there is going to be some variations. There are chances of evolution. So that's why the nature also has provided some plants not only to undergo always self-pollination, to go for cross-pollination. Such devices are called as outbreeding devices. Outbreeding devices. For what? For to avoid self-pollination. Avoid or discourage self-pollination and encourage or promote cross-pollination. What for? For variations to occur, for the evolution to occur, and to avoid or to stop the inbreeding depression. To stop the inbreeding depression, the cross-pollination should occur. What happens? Continuous self-pollination will result in inbreeding depression. This shouldn't occur. So that's why That's why the cross pollination should occur. So the nature, so majority of the flowering plants produce the bisexual flowers, hermaphrodite flowers, and the pollen grains are likely to come in contact with the stigma of the same flower. So what happens? Self-pollination occurs. So this continuous self-pollination results in inbreeding depression. So in order to discourage the self-pollination, avoid self-pollination, and promote cross-pollination, encourage cross-pollination, the nature has developed some devices or adaptations or contrivances which are called as outbreeding devices. So what are they? Let us learn now. First one is dichogamy. Dichogamy means what happens, the maturation of the female part and the male part takes place at different times. There is no synchronization. That is the release of the pollen grain. And receptivity of the stigma is not synchronized. See, if the release of the pollen grains and the receptivity of the stigma takes place in the bisexual flowers, then self-pollination occurs. So what is happening here? There is no synchronization. Either the release of the pollen grains takes place faster and the receptivity of the stigma does not take place. In such cases, if the pollen grains fall on the stigma is not mature, it's not ready to take the pollen grains. So definitely it will fall off and self-pollination is stopped. Otherwise, the stigma will be ready to take the pollen grains, but the pollen grains are not released. So what happens? The other pollen grains will come and then they will germinate. So here the chances of getting cross-pollinated is more and more. So there is no synchronization between the release of pollen grains and receptivity of stigma. So if these are of two types. That is protandry. Pro means earlier, andry means male part. Here the anther is going to mature first before the stigma, before the gynoecium matures. The androecium matures first. The release of pollen grains occurs faster. Anther matures first and releases the pollen grains. But here the stigma is not ready to take the pollen grains. Protogyny means what? Here the stigma, the gynoecium is going to mature first. Yeah, the stigma matures fast means ready to take pollen or it has attained the receptivity condition to accept the pollen grains. But here the pollen grains are not released, means the maturation of the gynoecium takes first before the androecium. Means the stigma is ready to take pollen grain, but the pollen grains are not released. This is protogyny. Then protogyny. Coming on to the second one. Here they are not synchronized. Like this, they are going to promote the cross-pollination. The second one is hercogamy. Hercogamy means what? Here the anthers and stigma are placed at different heights. Stigma are placed at different heights, placed at different positions, I can say, different positions. For example, if you take hibiscus itself, this is the stigma, these are the pollen grains. So the possibility of falling from here to here is very, very less. Okay, so they are placed at different positions is hercogamy. Then another one is nothing but the heterostyle. Here the styles are present at different positions. Styles are present at different heights. different heights. Like this, they are going to promote the cross pollination. Okay, heterostyle. It prevents the inbreeding, or you can say self pollination, by having the styles of the same species in different heights. That is heterostyle. Then another one is nothing but the self sterility. Self sterility, or you can say incompatibility, or you can say incompatibility. This is observed in Abutilon. This is observed in Abutilon, where what happens, you know, the pollen germination or pollen tube growth in the pistil is stopped anamata. It prevents, if suppose the self pollen is going to fall on the stigma of that one, that is not going to develop into pollen tube. Okay, that's not going to develop into pollen tube. It is going to inhibit the pollen germination. It is going to inhibit the formation of the pollen tube. That is occurring in Abutilon. Self sterility, and avoiding the self pollination. Coming on to the Dichline. Dichline is simple. It is nothing but production of unisexual flowers. Production of unisexual flowers means both the sexual parts, both the androecium and gynoecium are not present in the same flower, but staminate flowers and pistillate flowers are present. Unisexual flowers, production of unisexual flowers is nothing but Dichline. So if the unisexual flowers are present on the same plant, that is called as monoecious. This we have discussed earlier in the bryophytes and sexuality in organisms. Monoecious. If they are present in the same plant, unisexual flowers only present in the same plant. If they are present on two different plants, if the male flowers and female presents are present on two different plants, then such type of condition is called as dioecious. Okay, so monoecious, very good example is castor. So if both male and female flowers are present on the same plant, monoecious. Dioecious, if both male and female are present on two different plants, dioecious. So this monoecious and dioecious comes under the Dichline. These are the 5 outbreeding devices which will be promoting the cross pollination and preventing or avoiding or discouraging the self pollination. Thank you.